So we had some technical difficulties with the last video, so I'm just going to make this part 2. So once again, we begin with the core concept. Make sure to write this stuff down. Really important. Okay, so let's take a look at number 20 in the book, which will be number 7 of what we're working on. Okay, number 7. F of x is equal to 1 over 4 times x minus 6 to the power of 2. Okay, so this is number 20 in the book, if you want to take a look at it. So for this one, it wants us to find the vertex and the axis of symmetry of the graph of the function. So what we can do here first is, right below the equation that we have already, we're going to write the original equation that we see at the top. Okay, so we're going to write this down. This right here, right below it. So let's put this down here. Ax minus h to the power of 2. From here, we can figure out what each variable represents. And it doesn't show it on this, but it should be plus k right here. Plus k. So right here, we're going to write plus k. Oh, okay. My computer's not corresponding here. Okay. Alright, so from here, the way we figure out what our vertex is we figure out what our h is. Our h and our k. So in this case, what is our h? Is it negative 6 or 6? It's just 6, right? Because this negative is already here. So it's going to be our vertex. Actually, let's do some different color. Vertex. H, comma, k. Which is equal to, in this case, our h is 6. And we do not have a k here. So we're going to assume it's plus 0. That doesn't change anything. So our k is just 0. So our vertex is 6, 0, right? The 6 and the 0. If there's nothing written, you assume that it's 0, right? Because adding 0 to something doesn't change it. Okay, so we have our vertex, and the question asks us to find both the vertex and the axis of symmetry. So what is my axis of symmetry here? It's going to be the 6, right? Here on the bottom, we can write x, y, right? And remember, the x of our vertex is going to be our axis of symmetry. So let's write that down over here. Axis of symmetry. If you don't want to use your, let me see here. If you don't want to use the vertex to figure it out, you can also look at this. Our axis of symmetry is going to be h is equal to x, right? And this x is the same thing right here. And this h, whatever this h is equal to, and in this case it's equal to 6, that's going to be our vertex. So x is equal to 6, right? So axis of symmetry is x equals 6, and vertex is 6, 0. Alright, let's try another one. Number 22 in the book. It's going to be the 8th problem we're working on today. Okay. Y is equal to negative 5 x plus 9 to the power of 2. Once again, we're going to, right below, we're going to write down what each thing represents. So make sure to memorize this equation. It's really important to remember. Okay. And if it helps, go ahead and practice labeling what each thing represents. Let me erase this up here. Okay. So negative 5 is what? What's directly below negative 5? A. So that's our A. X is going to represent X. Our H is going to be right here. And what is our K? There's nothing here, so we're going to assume it's 0. And remember, it says negative H. So in order to get negative H, what do we have to do here to get positive 9? So that means it's going to have to be negative 9, right? So our H is equal to negative 9. Okay. So from here, let's figure out what our vertex is. Remember, vertex is equal to H, comma, K. And our H is negative 9. And our K is 0. Alright, so our vertex is negative 9, comma 0. Remember, this, whatever symbol you see here, it's going to have to be, you have to make sure to look at this first, right? If it was negative 9, then our H would have been positive 9, right? And since it's positive 9 here, it's going to have to be negative H, right? If this is a little confusing, I'll try to show you what it looks like right here. So x plus 9, right? And our equation here is x minus h, right? In order to get that, we'd have to change it to x minus negative 9 to make it represent something like this. So that's why it's negative 9, because when we multiply negative times a negative, we get positive 9. Hope that helps a little bit. And once again, our axis of symmetry is going to be h, right? So x is equal to h, so that means our axis of symmetry is negative 9. Alright, and the last problem for today, number 9. So this one is g of x is equal to 1 over 2 x minus 4 to the power of 2. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, before we begin, we're going to graph this. Let me see if I can get a graph here. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's continue with the drawing. So we're going to need to graph this. Okay. Oh, that was a mistake. Should be x. And this should be y. Okay. So first, let's look at our graph and figure out what our vertex is. So remember earlier that to find the vertex, we need h, comma, k. And our h is right here, but we don't have a k here, so we're going to automatically assume it's plus 0. So our h is negative 4, which means our h is positive 4, and our k is 0. Right? So to plot that on a graph, we're going to have to go where? 4 to the left, 4 up. Which way would we have to go? We'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, because the 4 here represents x. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's use a different color for that. So that's going to be right here. So that's going to be our vertex. So that means our line of symmetry, let's do that in a different color actually, is going to be right through here. So whatever points we find, we'll have to reflect across this line. And now go ahead and try to plug in your own points. We're going to try plugging in 2. Let's do the work over here actually. So 1/2 y is equal to 1/2 x minus 4. So we're going to replace that with 2. We're going to try 2. 2 minus 4 is 2 to the power of 2. 2 squared is 4. So when we simplify this, we're going to have 4 over 2, right? Because we're multiplying 4 by 1. And then we have to divide 4 by 2, which is equal to 2. So another point that we have is what? So we plugged in 2 for x. So our point over here is going to be 2, 2. So let's see. We go 2 to the right and up 2. And then, since we know that it has to reflect across this axis of symmetry, how many points to the left is this one? It's 2 points to the left is axis of symmetry, so that means we're going to go 2 points to the right. So we can draw one right over here. So our line is going to look something like this. Let's connect them now. It's going to look like that. Okay, and if we compare this to the graph of x squared, which is what the question asked us to do, it would look something like this. Let's do this in a different color. Let's go with white. So our vertex for y equals x squared would be right there. This would be our vertex. And we'd have to go, if we plug in 0, that would be our vertex. So let's plug in 1. That means if we plug in 1, 1 to the power of 2 is 1. So that would be right over here. If we plug in 2, it would be 2 squared, which is equal to 4. So we'd go 2 to the right and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, this is our axis of symmetry for the next line. So we can just reflect this. Since it's 2 to the right, we can go 2 to the left. Right over here. So this line would look like this. And this drawing is not the best, so I'm going to show you a better looking one that might help a little bit. Let's put this over here. Okay, so as you remember, the purple line is our g of x, right? It shows the colors right here. And the green line is y equals x squared. So what do you notice is a difference between these two graphs? Well, both graphs open up, right? And the graph of g, which is this one, is wider than this graph. It was that graph of f. This should be f of x actually. Let me correct this. Let me see here. Yeah, so that should be f of x. And the axis of symmetry is x equals 4, right over here. And the vertex is 4, 0, right here. And the graph of g, the purple line, is 4 units to the right of the axis of symmetry, which is x equals 0 right here, right? but it doesn't move up, so it's only 4 units to the right. So the graph of G is just a translation, 4 units to the right, and a vertical shrink, right? Notice that this graph is a little bit wider. How do you think this happened? Well, notice here that says half. That's because it's less than 1, it makes the graph wider. And your homework is right here. It's 446, 5 through 23 odd.